Ah. No. We're live. Hey.
Hey.
So we just sent out an email to invite other people to join in on the little Facebook Live that we got going on here.
Yeah. Why did you want to do this? I'm just curious.
Why did I want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's fun to interact with people, and I feel like we have these great conversations every so often.
And we should invite people to just listen
Well,
to
just I
us.
think people would benefit from it.
Yeah.
There's times where I walk away and I'm like, I wish I would have taken notes on that because that was really good info.
Yeah.
So every so often I'll get like questions from people, and you get questions from people on your podcast.
I do.
And it's like, I'll bet there's a lot of other people who are having these same questions, and maybe it would be helpful if we just answered them.
I agree.
So
this is a question that you got from one of your listeners.
Yeah. So I got a question a couple of weeks ago from a girl who is engaged.
Okay.
And I'm not going to read the specifics because I don't want to like give things away, but I think that what she's bumping into is pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
She basically said, look, I love my fiance. He's an amazing guy. He treats me right. But his friends are not in favor of marriage. Mm-hmm. Like, they weren't excited when they found out he was going to propose. And, the friends who are single are kind of like not that nice to women. Mm-hmm. They don't speak positively of them. And the friends that are married kind of complain about their wives all the time. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I love my husband, and I also know he loves his friends, but I'm scared that his friends are going to have a negative impact on our relationship. I'm scared that them complaining about women and complaining about marriage and complaining about me in particular it's going to rub off, and it's going to damage our relationship.
Yeah. Super valid concern.
Yeah. And Absolutely. I hear concerns like this all the time. Like maybe, your in-laws don't like you very much, and they're very vocal about it. I think that's a common thing. Maybe, you just have that one friend who's always complaining about their wife or their husband.
Right.
Oh my gosh, she's just like an extra child, or she's the ball and chain. She never lets me do anything. Yeah. She spends all my money. Whatever.
What I get is I'm
going to shut this door, by the way.
With different groups. You get together with like your girlfriends, and the girlfriends feel like it's just like a bashing session, that like girls' night is really just an opportunity to complain about your partner and sort of like one up each other. Oh yeah, well my husband does this and I hate this. And it can become really a toxic environment.
Yeah. And then like, it's proven, there are many, many studies that show that the people you spend time with matter.
Absolutely.
Like the words that you say, the thoughts that you think, the behaviors that you exhibit with your friends, I'm like counting on my hand over here, but it's not on camera. That's weird. I was like, where's my hand? So all of those things impact the way that you feel about your partner.
Absolutely.
And if you're spending your time around somebody who's constantly negative, it's gonna rub off.
Yeah. I mean, what's the saying of like the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with?
Yeah, Jim Rohn.
The average.
Yeah, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Absolutely.
And I've said several times, your marriage is the average of the 5 couples you spend the most time with.
Ooh, that's so interesting. I wonder that now I have that thinking about like the 5 couples that I spend. With? Yeah. Who am I spending time with? Who are my model couples? Interesting.
I'm going to scoot just a little bit closer to you, so we're both. So tell me what would you say to somebody who had those concerns, therapists?
Well, number one, it's a very valid concern that the people that your husband is spending time with, what his friends are saying, the conversations they're engaging in, it does affect the way that he's going to be thinking about, maybe not about his relationship, but about relationships. You can't help but not internalize messages that are communicated to you over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So what would I say? It's a tough concern. I would say that she needs to speak to her partner about this. Absolutely.
So because that's a sensitive subject.
It's really sensitive. I was thinking,
you don't go to your partner and say, hey, your best friends, I don't like them, and you gotta choose, it's them or me. Right. Like, that's not going to go well.
Yeah. So if there was anything, the first thing I thought of is how quickly her husband could become defensive, just in how she approaches him. So as a therapist, I would say having a really gentle startup is the number one first thing. I also would probably address it with him in a time where you're good. You're not currently experiencing any conflict around this area.
Don't let this be one of those things that you add on to a conflict.
Exactly. And you were out last night with your friends, and I'm sure they're bad mouthing me. So to pick a time and say, there's something really important that I want to talk to you about, and just when is going to be a good time for you, so that you can sit down and have that undivided attention, and let him know that it's something that's really important to you, and that it's your concern, and in a non-blaming way. Because the fastest thing that you can do is he can internalize that criticism and think that it's his fault. I don't know how you couldn't internalize it, to be perfectly honest, because I mean, he chose these people as friends. Right. So it's just going to be a really tough conversation, and just enter into it in as gentle of a way as possible.
It's great feedback.
Thanks.
What would you say if it was family and not friends?
Well, so here's the deal. The general rule of thumb is that if you feel as if you have sides to take, when you're married, the only side to ever take is your partner's side. You are no longer your...
But Laura, what if your partner's wrong?
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, what if your partner's the one who's picking the fight with your in-laws or with your parents?
Okay. So
sorry, I'm making this complicated on purpose.
Yeah, you are, but the rule of thumb is you still take your partner's side. Yeah, you're not married to your mom. You're not married to your father. You're going to die old with your partner, so you better pick their side no matter what. And it doesn't mean that they have to be right. It just means that you have one person to listen to, and you're not playing sides. Because I know a lot of people, when they get married, they feel like, it's a competition. Like, you still have to make your mom happy, and you have to make your wife happy. No, you really just have to make your wife happy. That's really the rule.
Why?
I would not want to see what it looks like otherwise.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
It's just the general rule of thumb, Nate. That's what you follow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would say if my wife came to me and said, "Hey, I feel like your friends are maybe not the best. And they may not be making you better."
I'll tell you what you would say. You'd be like, "Oh, Ange, this is a really important conversation. Let me sit down. I'm going to grab a notepad and a piece of paper."
No, I wouldn't do that.
But you know what? You are very different from other men, and you probably would say, "Okay, tell me more. Like, seek some more information. Understand your partner's point of view before you kind of dive into trying to problem solve there."
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you think that I'm different. I don't think I'm that much different.
I would say you're pretty different.
Okay.
Yeah, I give you the benefit of the doubt.
So if I was a normal dude, then if I was not different as you described me, what do you think is the typical reaction somebody might have?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I don't think my husband's friends are going to be watching this, but I have at times become critical of my husband's friends, feeling like they weren't lifting him up and making him a better human being. And that's really hard, because there's something that runs deeper in that friendship. And I think it's just as important for her to understand why he's friends with these human beings as it is for him to understand why she feels threatened by that relationship.
Right.
So with all of that out on the table, the one thing that needs to happen is they need to understand the deeper meaning underneath it all. And just means a really candid, open conversation where you're trying to pull some layers out and understand where the other person's coming from.
How do you pull those layers out?
You just get really curious about your partner and try and understand if what she's talking about is feeling threatened by that relationship, that these people are not speaking highly on relationships. What's the fear? Like, what is her fears that's going to happen? My guess is her fear is that these men are going to somehow
convince him not to be with her anymore.
Exactly. And that's a legitimate fear. And if you were hearing that and you were her partner, my guess is that you would feel pretty awful about that.
Mm-hmm.
You would not want her to feel threatened or feel like there was a loss of relationship, a potential of a loss of relationship. So it's really about understanding the person's motive, what meaning they're making of things, because oftentimes when we fight at like sort of I would say like iceberg level.
Yeah.
Up here.
And there's a whole bunch of iceberg
below. There's
below.
So much below the water. And that's really what we need to understand is what's underneath it all.
Sue Johnson talks a lot about that. I'm reading her book right now called Hold Me Tight.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the person who created emotion-focused therapy.
Yep.
And the thing that she talks about is how the thing that you're arguing about is rarely the thing that you're arguing
Absolutely.
about. that something like, oh, you came home from work late and I'm really angry, is less about coming home from work late and more about, can I rely on you to show up for me?
Totally.
Can I trust you?
Yeah.
You know, and like helping with the chores around the house is less about like emptying the dishwasher or taking out the garbage. And it's more, can I rely on you as a partner? Are you going to be there for me when I need you? When I call out, are you going to respond?
Yeah.
When I'm hurting, are you going to be there to comfort me?
Yeah.
You know, we have this innate desire to feel connected to somebody and to feel like I think it starts as babies, you know.
Oh, 100%.
You learned, was it in World War II that they learned this? Like they had these orphanages full of babies, these little kids who they provided shelter for them. They provided food for them. They gave them a bed to sleep in. And these kids were still dying. And they're like, why are these kids dying? And they realized that it's because they didn't have human connection.
Yeah.
They didn't have a relationship. And it wasn't until later that they realized that adults have the exact same needs of having a meaningful human connection.
I think I've told you this before, like you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and at the bottom you have food, water, shelter, those things that they were providing for those children in the orphanages.
The bare necessities.
And then, bare necessities. That's how a bear can rest at ease. Anyway, I've been listening to a lot of kid music lately. But I really think actually that we need to sort of rework Maslow's hierarchy of needs and put that human connection as the very bottom. Because if you think about it, when a baby comes out of the womb, if you don't have that human connection,
the skin to skin contact,
that looking your mother or your father in the eyes, then you don't even have the food, the water, the shelter. So that's just my own theory. Maybe I will write a book.
You should.
Reworking Maslow.
Oh, I like
the
it.
Title.
So let's rewind just a second.
Sorry,
no, it's totally relevant, but you've got this hierarchy of needs. You have this need to feel connected to a partner. And if your partner comes to you and says something like, you know, I'm scared that your friends are going to drive us apart.
Right.
It's less about the friends and it's more about I'm afraid I'm going to lose you.
Exactly.
I'm afraid that you're going to choose them over me and that I'm not your number one choice. And in a marriage agreement, like, part of the commitment that you're making is I'm choosing you.
Absolutely.
Like I'm picking you for the rest of my life to be my number one choice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of marriages really struggle just exactly what you said, because it's like, okay, I choose you unless my mom's upset, then I choose her.
Yes.
Or I choose you unless my friends want to go out and go like grab a beer or they want to go to the game, then I'm going to choose them.
Or I choose you when you're right in front of me and I say nice things about you, but then
the moment you're out of the room,
then I'm going to choose my friend's side and I'm going to just kind of be this like wishy-washy. I agree with you totally. Let's badmouth our wives, even if I don't really feel that way.
Right. So it's a matter of integrity in a lot of ways.
It is. I was telling you this story that I was out to eat the other day. And I find that this kind of happens often with people when they get into this mindset of how quickly we can start to influence one another. So I'm out to eat and something happens. I've got this big table. The entire family's there. We have small children and it's been an hour and our food hasn't been delivered yet. And slowly we start to verbalize exactly our frustration. What's going on with the food? Boy, our waitress didn't seem like she was totally on top of it. And we just kind of started to one up each other. And it was this spiral of just really negative thoughts. And then my lovely niece says one thing and all she said was, hey guys, let's just say one thing right now that we're thankful for. And I called her out on that one moment.
Suddenly you had a plate of humble pie to eat instead of your dinner.
I was like, thank you, like 18-year-old, for teaching all of the adults here a good lesson. And so that just really stopped it in its tracks. And I don't know if you imagine yourself being in a position where you're around all of your friends and they're all sort of speaking negatively about their partners or about their relationships. Could you have the integrity to be that one person that changes the climate of the room and say something positive about your partner?
I like that.
I mean, I think
I actually really love my wife.
Yeah, I think you'd be able to.
But I'll admit I've been sucked into it in the there's been moments where I've been sucked into like going, oh yeah, my wife will totally do that, or
Can I tell you something?
You can tell me.
You know what I think?
You can tell me it's just us.
It's just us.
So nobody else can hear. You can tell me whatever you want.
The rest of all of your friends. I think it's really important to talk to your partner about who should be the kind of like in the gates of the relationship. So, for an example, let's just say you're having a problem in the bedroom. And as a woman, I might go to my girlfriend and say, yep, we're having some trouble in the bedroom. And then my husband gets word that I've been talking to my best friend about what's going on in the bedroom. I think it's really important that all partners have an agreement, an explicit agreement about who they can include in the relationship and who they can talk to.
Who are the advocates of the relationship?
Who are the advocates?
Who are the safe people that are on the side of the relationship and aren't going to go, like, if you go to this friend and you say, oh my gosh, my husband did this and I'm really frustrated, they're not going to go, oh, you should get a divorce.
Right.
That dude doesn't, instead they challenge you maybe and say, hey, well, that sounds really frustrating, but what else are we missing in this story?
I mean, not only advocates for the relationship, but people that are included within the boundaries. So if you think of your relationship as having boundaries around it, we'll just make it a wedding ring. Why not?
That's a good idea. I like that.
So you have boundaries around the relationship. This is an agreement.
There's our boundaries.
There we go. Right around it. That this person is included and you feel comfortable with me being able to disclose certain things to that person, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to go to my mom. It doesn't mean I'm going to go to somewhere else, somebody else. It's that one person. Oftentimes couples, when they have fights, will go to their family members and they'll talk about it. And it's really tough for those family members because it's hard for them to get back on the side of being advocates for the relationship.
When all you hear is negative things about your child or your sister or your brother's partner.
Yeah.
They don't get to see the repair attempts.
Exactly.
And so all they're getting fed is the negative and the negative.
Exactly. So you have that one person. So I think that there needs to be an agreement about who's included, who's in there.
I like that.
Yeah.
And make sure that the person who's there is an advocate for the relationship and not just for you.
Yeah. So on my podcast recently, we were talking about friends of the relationship.
What's your podcast?
Oh, you want to know what my podcast is? It's Marriage Therapy Radio. Thanks.
I feel like you had to think too hard about that.
Well, you threw me off to
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So we're talking about friends of the relationship. You have people that can either be, you might have people in your life that find you attractive, that knew you as a single man, and they may not be friends of the relationship. They may be friends of Nate because they really like you, but they may not be friends and advocates for your relationship.
Right.
So it's good to identify who those people are and who, like you said, like who are the top 5 relationships that you spend the most amount of time with, and are they lifting you up?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I've been on my soapbox.
So let's flip it to, let's say you needed to have a conversation with some friends that didn't feel like they were being very good advocates.
Okay.
So maybe either on your own, or maybe you've had a conversation with your partner and the concern's been brought up, like, hey, I've just noticed that when you spend time with this friend, you kind of come home more negative and a little bit more complainy, and you're not very pleasant to be around. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention because that's not the wife that I love as much. How do you go talk to that friend now? Like what would be would you have a conversation with them?
Oh, absolutely. I would. I mean, every friendship's a little bit different. Like I just had a girlfriend come and stay with me, and it's best friend in the world. She literally was there, like ready to catch my baby as he came out. But anyway, with this friend in particular, I feel like I could say anything and I could misstep. I could, say it harshly, and we would still be able to get through the conversation because we have years and years and years built up of the benefit of the doubt. But I think if people truly love you, then if something's really important to you, they're going to hear it.
They'll receive the feedback.
They'll receive it. And a lot of people, it's hard to tell somebody, I don't like something that's happening between us or that you're saying. So it's really tough to hear that feedback. But eventually, I think they'll come around. And it might just be like, hey, I really want to try this new thing. I'm working on improving my relationship. And if you keep it in the eye of I'm working on improving my relationship, I found that when we spend time together, we collectively tend to speak poorly about our relationships. We don't lift each other up. We don't encourage one another. And I'd really like it if we could change that dynamic by speaking more positively. So
I think we can be better.
Yeah. So it's not her problem or his problem. It's our problem.
Yeah. You're so smart.
Oh, Nate, thank you.
Yeah.
You ask great questions.
I like this advice a lot. I can see myself following it if I ever needed to.
Cool. I feel like you wouldn't need to, but that's good.
It's hard. Like I notice the difference. Like My wife and I spend a lot of time with a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people, after we hang out with them, we leave and we just go, oh man, I'm so glad we hung out with them.
Yeah.
And then there's people where we leave and we go, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to keep hanging out with them? Because like it was hard being in that room while they were talking about this. Or
did we talk about doing the friendship purge? Did you and I talk about that?
Tell me more.
It must have been somebody else that I was talking to, but very similar circumstance.
Or I might just be playing dumb to set you up for a great addition to this conversation.
But just looking at how people are influencing you, knowing that everyone has an influence on you.
Yeah.
And, I think it might've been another girlfriend, but she had said basically that she was getting ready to do a friendship purge. And sometimes we just hold on to people because they've always been around. They're familiar. They're whatever.
Humans love comfort.
We love comfort in numbers, don't we?
Comfort in numbers. We like to have our OGs, the people who've been in our corner for forever and ever.
Yeah.
And it's hard to let go of people who mean a lot to you, who have it's similar to like cleaning out your closet.
Mm-hmm. Like the sentimental value.
There's sentimental value. There's like, oh, this thing is attached to this memory and this time in my life. And like, I don't want to let it go because that means maybe I'm not valuing that time in my life that was so important to me.
And it's not necessarily a formalized thing of like, okay, I just really need to let you go and I'm going to set you off into the wind and our friendship is over. It's more of maybe I'll just stop spending less time with you. And you might come to one party a year, whatever, a formal gathering, but as far as spending quality time and having those people that you're dining with at your dinner table and who you're honoring and valuing, you might need to do a friendship purge and keep those people around that are really lifting you up.
I had an epiphany as you were talking.
Cool.
I remember being single. I was single. Like I didn't get married until I was about 32. And I remember being so angry at my friends when they got married and then we weren't friends anymore.
Okay.
I was like, oh, your wife is stealing you away and killing our friendship.
So really this was somebody writing about you?
No, I'm just like, sorry, let me continue. So the thought here is like, when you get married, it's not just about you anymore. It's about you and your partner. Mm-hmm. And like, if my wife doesn't like my friends, they're not going to get invited over very often. Mm-hmm. You know, if we don't get along, if we don't gel, and if your friend is married, you have like 4 different relationships. You got him and him and her, her and her and him. Like there's this dynamic of everybody kind of needs to get along. And if there's 2 people in that dynamic that don't get along, that don't feel nourished, that don't feel uplifted, that don't feel inspired, that don't feel good after spending time together, then of course the relationship is going to fizzle. Of course the relationship is going to struggle. So like remembering maybe like if your partner has people who are important to them in their life, making a concerted effort to value their relationship and the relationship with their partner, and then also being sensitive to what's going on. Like if your partner's just not feeling it or you're not feeling it, like sometimes you got to let people go.
It's true.
And it sucks, but that's just the nature of like choosing one person above everybody else, is that it's going to shift the dynamic in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a fight, right? Like trying to keep, we were talking about this a little bit, like the homeostasis of I'm a single person and this is how my life is lived. And now I'm getting married and this is how my life is going to continue to live. And that just can't happen.
No. So
you
maybe
have to evolve and change.
Maybe the conclusion to this episode is if you are not prepared to let go of relationships that are important to you, then you're not prepared to get married.
Yeah. You know, it was a game changer. I was working with a couple and for years, probably about 3 years, they had what would be called a gridlocked problem, gridlocked issue in their relationship. And it was the center of just really hard feelings. And the hard feelings were around this third person that the female had a relationship with, a friendship with. And sometimes that friendship was sexual as well. And so when she was married, they needed to let that third person go. And that friendship wasn't able to continue. I don't know if she would have been able to continue. She probably would have argued that she could have continued a non-sexual friendship, platonic relationship with this third person. But it doesn't matter because the husband's view of all of that was that it was an unsafe relationship.
Right. He
for
didn't
the
feel
relationship.
Safe.
Yeah. It wasn't.
So you can either go through the rest of your life, making your husband feel unsafe.
Right.
Or you can choose your husband and say, I'm sorry, this other third person is not, you're not as important to me as my husband, and you got to go.
And the moment that she chose her husband was the moment that their relationship turned around. Because just like what you said is with Sue Johnson, when she teaches like it's all about safety. And are you going to be there for me? Will you choose me? Am I going to be your person? Can I be safe around you? And just by choosing her husband over this third person, it changed the entire dynamic of their relationship. And I didn't have to do a thing. It was great.
Choose the one you love and then love the one you choose.
Ooh. Mic drop.
Mic drop. Are we done?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for the random people who dropped in on our Facebook Live. If you guys have comments, leave them below. I'll keep an eye out for them. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, what are we doing?
Oh, I'm so excited. You guys, Nate and I are doing our very first couples retreat here in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's coming up on October 19th and 20th. It's a Friday night and then most of a Saturday from 9 until 3 on Saturday. And the workshop is $250.
It's going to be awesome.
If you want a promo code, email Nate and he will send you a promo code.
That's really thoughtful of you to offer that on my behalf.
You're welcome.
Who should come?
Who
is this for?
This is for couples only, and it can be any committed couple. So if you are thinking that you might want to get engaged at some point, if you are engaged, if you've been together for 40 years, you will find some nugget of wisdom that will transform your relationship.
More than one nugget of wisdom.
Absolutely.
The course is based on the 7 principles for making marriage work. If you're familiar with John Gottman's work, he is the king of relationship research. He's done over 40 years of research to figure out what goes into creating lasting, dynamic, awesome love. And we're going to be covering really actionable, practical tips to help you take your relationship from wherever it is right now up a level.
Absolutely. We're going to elevate the relationship. And the best part about this workshop is that it's so hands-on. You and your partner are going to spend hours working with one another, doing exercises so that you can go home and feel like you really have mastered the skills of relationships.
Can I do a shameless plug for you too?
Sure.
So a lot of people don't realize this, but Laura is the one who actually teaches all the people who get trained on how to do this program. Like she trains the trainers. So there are very few people on this planet who know this content better than you, I would say.
You. I would agree.
I mean, you helped develop the manual.
I did.
So this is not just like this isn't just 2 people getting together and being like, we're going to teach this little course. Like this is an expert and then me.
No.
No, but like you're far more an expert on this than I am. And I'm stoked to be doing it with you. It's going to be a lot of fun. But if you don't get a chance very often to hear somebody teach the material like she teaches it. So if you've ever thought about doing a Gottman workshop, this is like the one to go to.
My head is so big right now. You have no idea.
Good.
You filled it up.
We've got a double door for you to leave through.
Good.
So you'll make it out the doorway.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So if you want tickets, UtahDateNight.com has the link where you can grab your tickets. Yeah. And if you're not in Utah, let us know. And maybe we can work out bringing a workshop to you. Yeah. So that'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, you guys, take it easy.